Thank you everyone for coming into another Age of Darkness video. Today we're going to be looking at the new dropped content, version 0.2, the Queen of Nothing. This is the first major update for Age of Darkness, and it is jam-packed with new content. And so today we're going to be going through, looking first at the new hero, then going through the new buildings, and finally some of the quality of life and visual changes that have been made to this game. Like I said, it's a massive amount of content, so without further ado, let's make it happen. Alright, so the first piece of content, and the one I was absolutely the most excited about, is the new hero, the Queen of Nothing, Aelis Syren. Hopefully I pronounced that right. And I think it's just such a cool concept. The Queen of Nothing, last queen of a forgotten kingdom, standing against the demon hordes. Super cool. And her abilities really kind of back up that storyline. Her three abilities are Loyal Command, summoning her own personal royal guards. She starts off with 1 at level 2 and gets a maximum of level 5 at 10. Her second ability, Queen's Rage, allows her to buff her units behind those royal guards, giving them 15% attack speed while taking away 30% of their health. The other bonus is she gets health back if any of her units die under that effect, and that does go for her royal guards as well. She's ruthless. Finally, a fun ability is Eradicate, where she will summon the maximum number of guards available, assuming they're not already summoned, and bolster them pretty significantly. Massive increases to melee damage, attack range, movement speed, and a 5% stun chance. That's actually pretty nice. And so her abilities really go hand in hand with her concept, but how do they actually play? And so far, I've done a few games on horrific difficulty with her, and there's definite pros and cons to her playstyle. Starting off with the pros, she starts off very strong, in my opinion. She's got 20 attack damage right off the bat, which means she can one-shot those little tier 1 creepers that start out near your base. And even though she doesn't have the cleave of Edwin, I've seen her one-shot 3 or 4 of them at one time if you can line them up. Additionally, she needs less experience points than Edwin, believe it or not, to gain her first couple of levels. And hitting level 2 is so crucial to get that guard out, 30-second cooldown. You're going to have that thing out most of the early game. So she is incredible, better than Edwin in my opinion, at starting off fast and clearing that early map right around your base and putting you in a pretty good position to succeed. Where I've seen her struggle, again, in my opinion, is she struggles to transition to the mid and late game as you start to get out to the edges of the map to clear, getting around points of interest, as well as the later death waves. One of the biggest things, obviously she's meant to be a frontliner with her royal guards. The issue I've run into with that is she's very squishy. If you look at her health compared to Edwin's, it is significantly less, hundreds of HP less. And her royal guards start off with 45 health. To put that in perspective, the base swordsman, the tier 1 swordsman you get, has 120. 120 versus 45. Now that health does scale up as you get more. It goes from 45 to 95, so on and so forth. But what I've seen the problem is that as you start to move towards points of interest and you start to see tier 1 special units, the spiders, the slicers, she is incredibly squishy and requires a lot of micromanagement. And in a game where you're obviously trying to do 10 things at once, you have to be really careful and really attentive to her health compared to Edwin. And same thing with her guards. When you're trying to select all, you drag the box, it doesn't select the guards. You have to manually click on them and tell them who to attack. And if you're not actively micromanaging them, again, against those slicers and spiders, they're going to die very, very quickly. And so, while she starts off incredibly strong, I feel like she doesn't have a defined role in the late game. because she's squishy enough that she gets burst down pretty quick, and her damage, while impressive, she's not one-tapping those tier 2, slicers and spiders. So I think she doesn't have as defined of a role as Edwin. Now, Edwin, I love his defined role. In my opinion, he is the frontline tank who can chunk waves. I was playing a horrific wave yesterday where I misplayed it, admittedly, and I stuck Edwin out in front of a tier 5 horrific wave. And not only was he able to tank the wave for a good amount of time, his crackfire ability was chunking hundreds of enemies at once. And Aelis doesn't have really anything like that. No burst damage, and a little bit squishy. All in all, super fun to play, particularly early game. Requires a lot of micromanagement, which makes it a little bit harder moving into the upper tier difficulties, particularly Nightmare, where it's permadeath. But still a very cool concept, and I'm curious to see how they continue to develop her. But right now, I would give personally the edge to Edwin as the hero to use moving into the upper difficulties. The second big piece of content is obviously the new buildings, and I am super excited about these. I think they are amazing additions to the game. First and foremost, I'll go over what they do and then why I think they're so good. So the first building they added is the docks, which serve 2 abilities. First and foremost, they act as farms, water farms, if that's a thing, where they'll just give you food. Typically, I see them give between 15 to low 20s, so between a tier 1 and tier 2 farm. Additionally, they will put out nets that at a pretty consistent interval you'll start to see the fish jump up, get agitated. You can then click on the nets and gain 200 gold per. While I'm not hugely thrilled about having to click on the nets manually in a game where you're trying to micromanage a lot, that added gold, in addition to turning previously unfarmable land into food, is absolutely huge. Early game, food and gold are 2 of the biggest things you need, and this helps to solve both. Additionally, it's only 400 gold and 100 wood, and so really very affordable building, and one that you should be building all 4 of, in my opinion. Now, the second building is the Bazaar, and I'll admit, at first I thought the implementation of this building was a little bit bizarre. I know, terrible pun. I thought it was going to be like They Are Billions, where you can sell the materials that you've gathered, and if you're at maximum resources, it would automatically sell off. Now, that's not what this building does. This building gathers resources, stockpiles, they call it, completely independent of the resources you are gathering. Now, you can increase the rate at which they stockpile the resources by putting the Bazaar's green circle within the resource production building's range. From there, you can choose what to do with those stockpiled resources. If you need to buy the resources, you can exchange your gold for any of the wood, stone, or iron available. Additionally, if you need gold, you can sell those stockpiled resources for gold. At first, I was a little hesitant on this building, but playing it through a couple times, what both of these buildings do that I think is absolutely incredible to this game is they reduce the RNG elements. Now, as we all know, RNG factors very heavily into this game, particularly with open land for farms, as well as finding iron and gold mine later on. And these buildings really reduce how much that hampers you, because these give you additional sources of gold outside of just your keep and your houses that don't require you to find a gold mine. I was playing Horrific the other day, got up to the final battle having 1 gold mine that had 4 tiles, 196 gold, not too much. And I was relying purely on the Bazaar and the fishing huts in order to get gold, and it worked. Additionally, having the Bazaar able to buy resources really reduces the impact on finding that early iron mine, or if you're in a pinch in a wave and you're missing a couple resources for those last towers, it's a great way to get them. So again, it just gives you 2 more sources of revenue, particularly early game, that lessens the impact of RNG on a game that was pretty RNG heavy, and I think they are just tremendous additions to the game. So the last piece of content is some improvements slash quality of life changes. And while these aren't nearly as big as the other pieces of content I talked about, I still think they're pretty cool to mention. First one, hero level going from 5 to 10 is huge. Previously, you stuck at a level 5 capped hero. No real reason to try to grind up his experience points. So really, really cool to see it go up to level 10. And the heroes feel pretty heroic once they hit that level. Some of the other quality of life changes include being able to place and drag multiple buildings at once. When you're trying to build a ton of houses, it makes it nice. Additionally, when you've selected a bunch of houses or any building you're trying to upgrade in mass, previously, if you couldn't do all of them, you couldn't do it at all. Now it will just do the ones that are available. Some of the other changes outside of farm visuals, which look very nice, is rather than having to scroll over your production buildings to see when the resources are coming in, it puts the bar right on the UI on the side of the menu, so you can see when they're coming in. The other one I've noticed is that when you have a big group of archers selected and you click them to go into a tower, previously it would select random ones to go in. Now it feels like they are selecting the closest ones to the tower. And again, these are all small little quality of life changes, but I think it's important to notice them just because it gives me definite hope for the future that this is a company that's going to continue to listen and improve this game. And so these small quality of life changes hopefully are a signal that they're going to continue to improve and expand upon this game. And with that, we've gone through all of the changes, the heroes, the buildings. It's a lot of fun. All of this new content, I think, really adds to this game, and I am very much excited to see where we continue to go from here. So once again, thank you everyone for coming into another Age of Darkness video. Appreciate you watching. Hope to see you on our next video or live on our stream.
My cup's almost empty.
I don't know what you want me to do about the cup situation. I'm not the cup person. I'm more of a big picture kind of guy. I'm not really the cup guy. We definitely have cup people, but I'm not the cup person. How bizarre!